Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Law with Darren podcast. Today, I'll be covering a recent Rhode Island family court divorce decision that came down last week. It is the case of Ann Capaldi versus Stephen Capaldi, and this has to do with a divorce from way back in 1992, where apparently the husband, Stephen Capaldi, did not disclose that who at the time he was a state of Rhode Island Department of Corrections worker, a pension that he had, and they got divorced. And Anne is now 24 years later looking to reopen their prior divorce proceedings. So, what happened? Well, I'm going to read you guys some of the facts because these family court decisions are a lot easier to read. They're more fun to read and they're smoother to read than a lot of criminal decisions and whatnot because, they're very fact intensive. So, here we go. All right, let's see here. Ann Capaldi and Stephen Capaldi married in 1975. Stephen subsequently began working at the Rhode Island Department of Corrections as a senior probation counselor, a position he held for the rest of the marriage. Ann, on the other hand, went to work for the town of Coventry in 1986. She initially worked part-time and earned no benefits, but began working full-time for the town in 1992 after filing for divorce from Stephen on May 26th of that year. So again, files for divorce in May of 1992. During the course of the divorce proceedings, neither party conducted discovery nor prepared expense sheets under oath. So what does that mean? Discovery is a tool that attorneys and basically parties have whereby they can force the other side to answer questions under oath, under the pain and penalty of perjury, okay, and produce documents, complete copies of things. And if you don't like what you're getting from the other side, you can go to the judge and say, Judge, Your Honor, I asked for these documents. They're relevant. I need to get my hands on them. The other side is not producing them. Force them to do so or make them lose the case. And the judge will do that. So two of the main tools are what are known as interrogatories, right? They are written questions that you literally send to the other side, the other party, and ask them, instruct them to answer under oath, in which you can ask them all kinds of questions. What kind of earnings they have. It's basically whatever you can think of that's relevant because the other side can always object to answering to, irrelevant questions, and the judge will figure that out. And decide who has to answer what. And a request for documentation, which, again, documents are very, very important. So, Ann Capaldi did not do that. She had a lawyer. It remains unclear as to why her lawyer did not send out this request for discovery to Stephen, because had they done so, they would have realized that Stephen had a pretty sizable pension as an employee with the state of Rhode Island. So, what happens? They go forward with the divorce. Stephen was never asked about his pension. He never talked to her about it. They get divorced. As a part of the divorce, the divorce judgment includes what's known as a property settlement agreement or a marital settlement agreement. Literally, it's a contract between the two parties that they literally work out and sign. And then the judge takes this agreement that the two parties work out on their own and incorporates it, or basically makes it a part of the court's final decision. So the court will literally say that we are incorporating and taking this marital contract that the husband and wife have agreed upon, and that becomes final. Okay, so they do that. They officially get divorced. Both go their separate ways. Everything appears honky-dory. And then fast forward to 2017, when apparently Ann is talking to a family friend who asks Ann why she never got Stephen's or a portion of Stephen's pension from the divorce, given that he is a state employee. And Ann apparently was surprised and intrigued by this, and she looks into it, and she agrees. So what does she do? She takes her ex of 24 years back to court, on the grounds that he failed to disclose his pension, that had she known about it, that she would have, it would have been considered by the judge at the time, or she at least would have negotiated for it. So she goes back to court, and what happens? The family court judge agrees and says that, that the part of Stephen to not disclose the pension was willful and was he concealed it, and that as a result, Anne was entitled to the money because of his concealment. Even though the case is 24 years old, Anne had just learned about it only a couple years earlier, and therefore she was within the statute of limitations to reopen the case. So what does Stephen do? Oh, and the family court judge awards $83,000 to Anne. So I'm sure Anne was pretty happy about that, thinking that, here she is 24 years later, being, with a court judgment, a court telling her ex that he has to pay her $83,000. But her ex, Stephen, undeterred, files an appeal to the Rhode Island Supreme Court, the highest court in Rhode Island. And what happens there? The Supreme Court reverses the lower court and says that basically, back in 1992, Anne had every opportunity to force Stephen to reveal any of these issues under oath, right? Whether it be through doing the discovery I talked about earlier, or filing a basic family court financial asset disclosure, which they had back then, of which she didn't do, and that basically her failure to ask never at any point put an affirmative obligation on the part of Stephen to disclose something that she didn't ask for. So they found that Stephen had not committed any fraud, had not concealed anything at all, and basically it was Anne's fault for not asking the question back in 1992. So the Rhode Island Supreme Court overturns the family court, and Stephen walks out a winner in this case. So, lesson to be learned here. Get a lawyer. If you're going to divorce somebody, get a lawyer. I mean, you may think, the idea of spending $3,000-4,000, when you and your ex agree as to how things are going to play out, and that you're not really fighting over much, and you agree who's going to get the house and the dog and the car, that may sound good, but you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't, in the case of Mrs. Ann Capaldi, she missed out on $83,000, which, I'm sure is a sizable amount of money. So had her and her lawyer asked these basic questions back in 1992, and again, I don't know why her lawyer didn't do it. Maybe the lawyer was doing it as a favor. I'm not really sure. But she didn't do it, and he didn't do it. And but had they done it, and Stephen had hid his pension, it would be a whole different case. So, lesson learned: hire a lawyer, because if spending $3,000 makes you able to secure $83,000. Well, that's $83,000 in your pocket. I'm sorry, $80,000 in your pocket. Okay. So hope you guys enjoyed this. I will put the link to the case in the description. Again, it's the case of Ann Capaldi versus Stephen Capaldi. Supreme Court, like I say, the basic citation 2021-328. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a short one today. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section. I'll try to get to them. And as always, have a great day. Be well, be safe, and have a good 4th of July. Take care.